Hello, listener, and welcome to Book 3, Chapter 18 of Bite-Sized Tales, the audio flash fiction podcast. In today's chapter, a thief has to make a tough decision, and hopefully, the right one. The Selection, written and read by Chris Hussey. The robber heard the telltale click of the lock's tumblers responding to the gentle caress of his tools. He knew the final barrier to all he sought was about to bow before his expertise. Thanedros was an expert burglar. He exhibited it time and time again. There was no crypt, tomb, or ruins of the ancestors that he could not thwart. Traps, ancient puzzle locks, and more were only small delays to him. The treasures and secrets that lay beyond all were revealed to him one way or another. It was only a matter of time. Some of these treasures were for him and him alone, making him incredibly wealthy. He was, after all, a thief. Other treasures were prizes for his employers, those seeking a specific item of renown, or wealthy family members seeking a relic from their great-great-grandmother's past. Occasionally, the master thief found himself hired by the wealthy or powerful to strike at an enemy's wealth or power. These were the tasks that Thanedros took the most delicate care with. Stealing or recovering an item from an ancient tomb had its risks, but those usually ended once the rays of the sun fell on Than's face upon exiting that domain of the dead. Stealing something from a living individual, especially one with power that leaned into the supernatural, was always a dangerous prospect. The security and protection of their valuables were always more dangerous and brought about risks beyond leaving the building in which the bounty resided. Dealing with a wizard, sorcerer, or summoner was never pleasant, but sometimes necessary. Like his current job. The wizard wanting to hire Thanedros sent his apprentice in the hopes to remain anonymous. It was a task that failed. While the thief did indeed favor gold, jewels, and items of beauty, he knew that the intangible treasure of information held high value. He knew the apprentice and, by extension, the wizard he served. But the robber kept the charade, playing ignorant. The money offered by the apprentice was too much to ignore. Sweetening the deal, the apprentice offered additional assistance via charms, potions, and other magical foci to help Thanedros defeat the magical traps that surely were in place. What surprised the thief was how few of them he'd used up to this point. Everything he'd learned about the target, which in this case Than admitted wasn't as much as he desired to know, told him the target, another wizard by the name of Ageron, dabbled in dealings with many denizens of the Nether, otherworldly threats. Thankfully, Than hadn't encountered any of those as he traversed through the hallways and chambers of Ageron's mansion. Thanedros pushed the door open carefully, his eyes constantly scanning for any secondary traps that might be present. Retrieving the candle next to where he knelt, Than moved it to illuminate the area, adding some assurance to the all-clear he'd already determined. Properly assured, he gently padded into the room, the candle leading the way. He was only a few steps in before the dark of the room was suddenly awash in light. Torches, lanterns, lamps, and glowing yellow orbs suspended in midair all came to life. Thanedros looked for a place to hide, finding nothing. Out of reflex he crouched, but no threat materialized. Making a quick survey of the chamber, he found himself on the upper level of a split-level room. Along the walls of both levels were portraits of numerous individuals. The thief recognized different artistic eras and styles, but was hard-pressed to provide the actual names of said times they might have been painted. All the subjects in each painting seemed to stare at the intruder, questioning his business in the room. The necklace Thanedros wore gave no indication of a magical trap immediately present, or at least one not masked enough for the locket to detect. Thankful for the gift from his employer, the thief turned his gaze to the lower level. Peering through the slats of the railing, his eyes danced over the treasures which lay below. Urns, jewelry, exquisite dinnerware, candlesticks, and so much more were arranged in such a way that made it look like nothing but dust-collecting trash. On the far opposite wall of the lower level rested two statues, bracketing a dirty mirror. Friends, and even his enemies, often asked Thanedros what made him so successful. The thief was always careful to never admit too much beyond the always necessary skill for any burglar, but what truly made him the master he was his vision. A careful eye, such as Thanedros's, always was able to see the elegance and hidden patterns in any arrangement or room, or trap. Taking in the whole of something allowed Than to better dissect the parts, giving him an edge in knowing where to look to find what he sought. And in this mission he sought a specific ring. Thankfully, the apprentice was very detailed about its look. The chamber was filled with dozens of rings, all scattered about. It could take hours to sort through them all, but taking a deep breath, Thanedros pulled his vision back, studying the pattern and the way of everything on the lower level, until he found what he sought. But as his eyes began focusing in on his target, something strange caught his attention. His gaze shifted slightly, following this new peculiarity. Within moments, the visual trail ended, settling on this new target. Well, this is a problem. The thief spoke to no one in particular. The apprentice never said anything about two of the same rings. Thanedros rose and descended the stairs. There were two rings, both identical, each resting on the proper finger of a statue of a beautiful woman, which were also identical. Each twin was carved from alabaster and looked incredibly lifelike. The ringed hand was turned upward in front of the face of the woman, her stone eyes staring directly at it. Thanedros knew the value of the statues would be astonishing, but also far too heavy to move. The only difference between the two was the first one Thanedros noticed was held inside a cage of iron bars, while the other was free. The dirty mirror he spotted when first scanning the chamber rested against the wall between them. The thief moved back and forth between each statue, studying the rings intently, looking for even the slightest deviation or flaw that would tell him which was the one he sought. His frustration grew with each pass, finding none. His locket indicated no magical traps, but again, the necklace was only so potent. If there were stronger magics and maskings, he might be finding out the hard way if he made the wrong choice. As he padded back to the first statue, he stopped. The lips on the stone being suddenly started to move, speaking to him. "Quite the selection, no?" She spoke to the thief, who still held his position, wide-eyed at what was occurring. Than's eyes moved around, looking at the treasures stacked and placed around the chamber, ready once again for a trap to be sprung at the words of the statue. Completing the scan, his eyes returned to the caged woman. Her appearance had shifted in that time. The locks of alabaster hair now veiled her face, showing only her lips. The hand and the ring retained their original position. Unsure of how to respond, the thief decided it was safest to simply play along. "It's unbelievable," his voice dripped with feigned awe. A second voice now filled the chamber from behind Thanedros. It was identical to the first. "Which one will you steal, thief?" Thanedros cocked his head as he turned to face the uncaged statue. Like the first, her appearance also was now altered. Her face was fully exposed, but the ringed hand was now extended in Thanedros' direction. The thief began to suspect this was indeed some elaborate trap, just one he couldn't yet discern. Taking a deep breath, he pulled his vision back. Continuing to play their game, he decided to take the task to them. "It has been some time since a woman, whether flesh or stone, spoke to me in such a manner." He looked toward the first statue. "Why are you trapped here? And why is she not caged as you are? You haven't attacked, so you are not sentries. You're clearly beautiful, even if your face is now hidden. So perhaps you are decoys." "We are neither," the first woman spoke. "Perhaps we are warnings," the second added. "Warnings? Of what could befall me if I attempt to steal?" Thanedros questioned. Each first shook their head, then nodded, confounding their previous answer. "No," the first spoke. "You could pilfer any of these items and leave now, and we could do nothing." The second continued the sentence, "nor say anything." Thanedros watched both statues, then his eyes settled on the mirror between them. The dirt on the glass began to change as well. It wavered and warped, the dirt and dust becoming like smoke, which quickly faded, revealing his reflection. "What is this magical glass?" "A mirror," spoke the first. "To ignore," spoke the second. "Why?" Thanedros stepped forward towards the mirror. "It is magic," spoke the first. "To trap and ensnare," spoke the second. Thanedros continued forward to the glass. He'd completely forgotten about the rings as he neared the reflective surface. "What will it show me?" "Your beautiful future," spoke the first. "Your ultimate fate," spoke the second. The thief was entranced as he reached the glass. The reflection was him, but somehow more handsome, more dashing. "It will give you power," spoke the first. "It will make you weak," spoke the second. Thanedros placed his hands just before the surface of the glass. He felt the material begin to pull and reach towards his hands, as if they were magnetized. The entire mirror rippled like a pond disturbed by a stone. He focused his thoughts on one of his many hideouts and safe houses. He felt something deep inside himself. The thief smiled. "Where will it take me?" he asked the statues. "To your death," said the first. "To safety," answered the second. Thanedros smiled wide. That's all I needed to know. In a flash, he reached out to the second statue. His hand deftly slipped around the ring on the statue's finger, popped it off, and gripped it tightly in his hand. The first statue screamed while starting to move, lunging its stone arms through the cage's bars. The second laughed as the face began transforming from the beautiful woman to that of Ageron. As Thanedros flung himself into the undulating mirror, his mind still focused on his safe house, he heard the wizard speak in a rough voice. "This is far from over, thief." "It is for now," Than quipped as he vanished into the glass, tumbling out the other side to the worn wooden floor of his safe house. A small fading ripple in the air above him, the only visible sign of the magical gateway quickly vanishing. Thanedros opened his hand to reveal the ring resting safely in his palm. He knew he had the right ring, but he also knew he needed to get rid of it immediately. Author's note. So this story is one of the few remaining writing prompts that existed in the writer's channel of the Gaming Engage with Friends Discord. And I actually, when I went back and reread this story, there was something going on with the two statues that when I reread it, I couldn't remember what it was. So I had to do a little bit of story surgery to do a lot of rewriting of this writing prompt that I originally had. The two statues were still part of that, but what their original purpose was, I actually had forgotten. But either way, I hope you enjoyed it. This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada, provided under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we'd greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. For more information about our authors, please visit bitesizedtales.com. We look forward to reading to you next time.